Welcome everybody to Educator Circle with Dr. Lisa. And today, Wisdom Wednesday, I have a special guest from Flemingsburg, Kentucky, the superintendent of Fleming County Schools. This is Brian Creasman, and I am excited to bring him to you. We've been talking about how everybody is faring during this pandemic and how it has impacted educators across the nation, specifically his district. And he's going to bring some hope to you, telling you some of the things that he's doing under his leadership to address this issue, not just for his stakeholders, but for other people and their stakeholders across the nation. So, Brian, what do you think this has done to the education industry?
Lisa, thanks for having me. Hopefully, due to COVID, we've embarked on something that can really be beneficial to education. Maybe the conversations around education change. We went from here in Kentucky in March 13th was our last day of traditional instruction. And we were preparing in March for state assessments. And within hours, that was no longer a focus. And our focus went back to really that learning and really about what do our students need to be successful and to survive. And also our faculty and staff, what did they really need to be, to also succeed in the classroom and also to survive. So maybe, there's the positive of maybe we can really start having these conversations in education about, we hear about the social emotional learning, that's your big hot topic, those ding ding words right now. Well, it came full force starting in March in schools. If you had not heard of SEL, you now know what SEL is. And so I really hope that it's really given us an opportunity to say, what is education really about? And, what kind of strategies that we developed to address, this remote learning, and how can we, when we get back to traditional, what can we use to really engage students?
Now tell me why social emotional learning became such an important preliminary issue. How did that happen?
Yeah, so, when, you hear on the news and you read in the newspaper about all the bad things with COVID, that self-isolation, you've got domestic abuse has went up by 40 to 45%. So when you translate that to what is that doing to students, we've really had to get involved with, emotionally, are they okay? Socially, are they okay? Is their health, because most of our kids, Lisa, and you know this, you've been a superintendent, there's a large majority of our kids who they're homeless. They do not have a place to go when we shut down. They didn't have a place to go, a stable place to go. They didn't have food. They didn't have hygiene products. So, we really switched from education to survival mode for many of our students, and just making sure that they were getting the needs to really succeed, to survive.
I find it so important, and I want everyone to hear the voice of the educators, which is why I wanted to connect with you. I have seen you and the other wonderful superintendents of your state. There's a lot of amazing superintendents in your state that are doing extraordinary things. And the reason I say that is because many areas that you're serving do not have access to internet capacity, and you are living in areas of persistent poverty, which makes it very difficult to educate your students from remote locations. And you all are taking the challenge and making it happen. And I noticed you and I are connected on LinkedIn, the professional network, and I noticed that you particularly have taken an approach, not just with this issue, with your leadership in general, which is extraordinary. Tell me about #FitSoup.
Yeah, so Lisa, when we started Fit Soups back literally January 1, at that time, we didn't know what COVID was.
Mm-hmm.
And people thought I had literally lost my mind, that I was talking about fitness and health and nutrition. And when I was named Superintendent of the Year in Kentucky, I told the Kentucky Association of School Administrators that, really one of the platforms I really wanted to talk about was the health and fitness and nutrition of students and staff. Everybody, when you become, I guess, a Superintendent of the Year, a lot of, platforms focus around achievement gaps, reading, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about the health gap that existed. So since January 1, we've got about 400 to 500 superintendents from Washington State to Arizona, to Florida, to Maine, that post on LinkedIn and post on Twitter about their daily focus on health, fitness, and nutrition. And you'll see superintendents just collaborating based on that. And Lisa, overnight, it was, I thought, well, maybe we'll have some followers of this, but overnight, it seemed like my Twitter account went up by 500, and just people started posting about their day leaders, about their focus on fitness. And one of the things that we've really stressed the superintendents who post, we're not into trying to encourage what we term magazine diets or magazine goals. It's just about you, trying to make yourself better. And we focus not just on fitness, telling everybody they need to go run do a triathlon, but something, it's about health and well-being. It's about mental fitness. Mm-hmm. And for instance, like one thing that I posted this past Sunday was, and I try to post key strategies like faith. Having faith in something can actually lower your stress, lower your blood pressure. So it's not necessarily about pumping iron or going on a diet, but just really focusing on you for a change. And in education, this, we really need to encourage educators to focus on themselves sometimes. I think that would cut down on burnout, lower turnover, and help with retention.
I agree. And I just really appreciate the leadership that you're exhibiting in your state and across the nation. What other things would you like to shine a light on that you think would encourage other people who are leading in these trying times and uncertain times?
That's right. So, Lisa, one of the things that, and I was talking to a interviewer last week, that, we asked educators in Kentucky, remote learning is called non-traditional instruction. We've had non-traditional instruction for the past 4 years, I want to say. Fleming County is not a traditional non-instruction, traditional instruction district. So we've never toyed with remote learning for snow days or sickness. So we asked educators nationally to shift, which typically takes 6 to 12 months of pre-planning, in hours. We had to shift. So one of the things I think as educators, we need to really applaud ourselves. Nothing I did as a leader. I applaud the staff. I get to work with phenomenal teachers and staff members who was asked to change quickly, and they did because they had to, because our students needed them to. But just think about nationally, how many teachers had to shift, how many schools had to shift in a matter of hours to meet the needs of our students. And I think we've done that remarkably. If you look back on a lot of my social media posts, I try to stay out of the politics of it, because as superintendents, Lisa, we have to,
Neutral.
we have to remain neutral. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to remain neutral. I never do the R&D thing.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things, and I guess my most political posts over the years, has really been that we do not treat education as a national security issue. COVID brought that out loud and clear, how education was a national security issue.
Mm-hmm.
We had to perform to make sure that a piece of America continued, so that a piece of the economy could continue.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this brings out that how important education is in the economy, and also to national security. And our teachers, and especially our food nutrition staff across the nation, and especially in Fleming County, they're heroes. There's millions of meals served each day by food nutrition staff, and they're on the front lines. Interesting how they're deemed essential and emergency staff at this point. And I just think we've really not valued them enough. And I'm so proud of what our staff has done in Fleming County. But going back to what you were saying about Kentucky superintendents, Lisa, I've worked in 3 states, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Georgia. And the 172 school districts and 172 superintendents here in Kentucky, it is amazing how we collaborate here in Kentucky. It's when things are needed, we team up, we collaborate, we share resources. Districts, I'm on the eastern part of the state, and I talk to people on the western part, and it's just a natural occurrence. I think that is really that team, there's a hashtag Team Kentucky. I think it really defines that.
I agree. I've had the opportunity to work with so many different schools, and I've loved every single one of them. Of course, as I said earlier, when we were first meeting one another, my travel schedule was primarily full of going to Kentucky schools and doing live presentations. And so, well, thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you and show you some opportunities for any of the school districts in Kentucky, Brian, or just if you're seeing this and if you're a part of Fit Soups, you're welcome to join in too. It's very important for you we talked about burnout. We talked about needing to handle things with non-traditional education, but how are you handling your non-traditional professional development? How are you building your school culture and building the relationships of your key players? This is a very important time to develop that. And so with Educator Circle, there's a couple offerings I'd like to give your school, Brian, or any of the Fit Soups or the schools from Kentucky, especially. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And so there is a school version of the leadership game that will help you take your school to the next level, especially in the wake of this crisis. And then also the second offering is visioneering. What are we going to do to restructure now? How are we going to engineer our vision of our schools? So these are the things I'd like to share with any of you who would be in need of that. Just reach out to me. My phone number is there and my email is there, or you can shoot over to educatorcircle.com, and that information is there too. Thank you so much, Brian. You have been an incredible contributor. You've added a lot of value to the education industry, and we thank you for being on this session of Wisdom Wednesday.
No, Lisa, thank you for having me.